What is up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be talking about the exotic Fury AR that was added in this week's update because this rifle is incredibly powerful. As always, if you guys do find this video to be helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, and comment down below what you think of this exotic Fury AR. So, before we get into the exotic effects, I'm just going to talk about the base stats of the weapon. This exotic version has the base stats that are equivalent of the mythic Fury AR. So it'll do more damage than the legendary. It'll reload faster than the legendary. I believe like Bloom is also slightly better than the legendary. So just statistically, you're starting off with a good base. And the Fury AR, I think, has always been a statistically like very good weapon ever since it was added. It's just never really had a chance to shine because of what it was competing against. In Season 1, we had the Hollow Twister AR, which was obviously incredible, and had a red dot, which made it just much better at like medium to long range fights. And then last season, we had the Spire AR, which did also like outperformed the Fury in long range and had better accuracy, as well as just having a base 50 round magazine, which was like incredible for that season. But this season, with the ARs we currently have, I feel like the Fury has more potential to actually shine and is kind of an underrated weapon because between the Hammer and the OXR and the Fury, I think all of these options are quite good and it really just comes down to preference. For long range fights, I think the OXR is the best, but in medium range, I think both the Hammer and the Fury are quite good. And as far as like how the loot pool is set up, I think this is like the best potential the Fury has had to actually be, you know, a very good weapon. Now that that's out of the way, like the Fury is good. What does this exotic do? Every time you shoot it, it gives you the low gravity Hoprock effect. And this is kind of similar to the Flowberry Fizz, but it's like a stronger version of the Flowberry Fizz. And this can actually be incredibly good, but it can also kind of grief you in certain situations. So this means if you shoot it and you have that low gravity effect, your shockwaves will send you much further than they regularly would, and launch pads will also send you further. Any version of mobility that you have is amplified by the zero gravity. So shockwaves, launch pads, crash pads, the geysers, anything you can do, this low gravity will make it even better, and you will obviously be immune to fall damage as well when you have this. And with the removal of like the medallions, the shockwave launcher, and the reduction in car spawns, I've kind of just been carrying the Flowberry Fizz a good amount anyways, just to have some extra movement to get around the map faster. But also having this low gravity effect in fights will give you a huge advantage on other players, because you can just like jump around, easily break their camera, float around, and like just chip shots down with the revolver. When we had the double jump medallion in the game, you could just kind of trigger that at will, no problem. But with the medallions being removed, I think if you go into a fight with this low gravity effect, you have a huge advantage. With like the pacing of the game being slowed down, I think the Flowberry Fizz has risen in priority or gotten a lot better just as a result of that. And it's something that will throw a lot of people off because it's not as common. This low gravity effect is also really good whenever you have to go against someone who has the Swarm Strike rocket launcher, because a lot of times with like explosive weapons, people want to shoot it at the ground next to you. And if you have the low gravity and can just jump out of the way, then you're not going to be susceptible to taking damage to that explosion. And a lot of times, someone going for that and getting no damage out of it will probably result in you winning the fight, because that's a good amount of time that like they wasted going for that, right? And since this Fury AR applies to low gravity whenever you shoot, you'll pretty much always have it active in fights. Like I said, the Fizz is good to have going into a fight, but at times it's like inconvenient. The amount of time it takes to use the Flowberry Fizz can make it rough to trigger in every single fight. But with the Fury, you probably have shot your AR at some point during the fight or going into the fight. And even if you haven't, just swapping to your AR, quickly shooting, and then swapping back to your shotgun, that way you can activate the low gravity, is much faster and more convenient than like, you know, switching to the Fizz, using the Fizz. And then you also don't have to dedicate an inventory slot to the Fizz at that point, so you could use a different healing item if you wanted. So the Fizz low gravity effect is just very good for how the season currently plays, and this Fury AR is the most convenient way to get it. This can get you in trouble sometimes though, because as I already said, the Flowberry effect that you get from the Fury, like the Hoprock effect, is more like extreme than the Flowberry. I feel like the Flowberry effect is like a perfect amount of floatiness, but also like not keeping you in the air too long. With the Fury AR Hoprock effect, you stay in the air for like a really long time, and if you know that can be something that can really cost you, especially when it comes to like people third partying you. If you're trying to escape from a fight and you're just like kind of slowly floating around, it can be bad. So this is very good, but it's also one of those things that like you need to be mindful of because it can leave you somewhat vulnerable. It's not something that you just want to use and float around in every single fight without really thinking about the side effects, you know? It can get you killed. Another effect of this exotic is that it allows you to aim down sights while you're in air. And obviously this can pair really well with the low gravity effect because most weapons don't allow you to aim in while you're in the air. I think the only other one that does this season is a Swarm Strike. And so you maintain a good amount of accuracy while in the air. And that you obviously you can combine that with the Hoprock effect. You like jump and, you know, be able to still hit your AR shots consistently. And there's going to be some fights in the game where this is incredibly overpowered and your opponent just can't really do much about it. And you can just straight up win the fight with that effect on its own. But as I've touched on a few times, this can put you in really bad situations because unless you're like shockwaving or something, like the zero gravity you get from the Hoprock can kind of slow you down in some situations. Like I think it's best to take advantage of this in like close range fights because you can low gravity jump over the opponent's head, easily break their camera and make the fight super awkward for them. All the while you're just raining down AR shots that are decently accurate because you're able to aim in this situation. Or you could just use your Wrecker revolver at that point and, you know, it would be perfect. In some medium range fights, this can also work out really well. But where this gets a lot of people into trouble is going to be in long range fights. Because in long range fights, if you're just jumping up in the air and just staying in the air, you're not really going to have cover. And as I already touched on, you go kind of slow when you have this effect. So if you make yourself exposed and you're going slowly in a long range fight, that probably isn't going to go well for you. I'll have a clip on screen now from when an enemy used it against me in a long range fight. And you'll see how easy it was for me just to win the fight from the ground level because I was able to actually use cover. I have this opponent's entire body to shoot at. And from their perspective, they only have like my upper torso and head because I'm playing right shoulder peek on this tree. In long range fights, just being up in the air doesn't really benefit you too much, but in close range fights, it definitely can. And in some medium range fights, it can as well. Another time where this aim down sight in air effect is incredibly powerful is going to be if you're chasing somebody that's using mobility. So if you like shot at somebody and they're like shockwaving away and you're shockwaving after them to chase, the fact that you can aim in and just like continue to fry them with decent accuracy while you're following them in the air is something that we haven't really had in the game before. I feel like you put a lot of pressure on enemies, and this is a situation that happens a good amount this season. One of the biggest complaints I've seen from players this season is that like every time they shoot at an enemy, they're just shockwaving away or crash padding away, and then it just becomes a chase where they're just waiting for that enemy to run out of shockwaves or crash pads. But if you have this exotic Fury and your aim is decent, you really shouldn't have a hard time continuing to chase and deal damage to them and then eventually get that elimination. I feel like a lot of those chasing situations, you give the enemy less chance to kind of regain, but also you end the fight sooner, which hopefully will result in you being third party to less. But still, the floaty aspect of it can kind of get you killed. Like overall, I think this Fury AR is very good. And in some fights, I think it's one of the most powerful exotics we've ever seen. But if you use it poorly, it can make you a very easy kill. So it's like very good, but also very bad at the same time, depending on how you use it. If you use it well and only take advantage of it and only use that low gravity effect in the right fights, then you're not going to have, then you're going to have a very good weapon. But if you're just trying to do it and force it in every single fight, then you're going to win some and you're going to lose some. And in some fights, it's going to feel like you just really couldn't do anything because your character is stuck in the air. Last season, we had the revolvers that kind of allowed you to do a similar thing where you could stay in the sky and shoot people. But the thing that made the revolvers better than this, I think, is the fact that once you weren't aiming in anymore, your character would drop down. So you could kind of choose when you were stuck in the air and when you aren't. But with the Hoprock effect, sometimes you just get kind of stuck floating there. And it can, you know, make you a much easier kill. I think if the grappler was in the loot pool right now, this Fury would be even more powerful, because then you could grapple to get yourself out of harm's way. But that's not currently in the loot pool, so it is what it is. As I said, though, this Fury is incredible. Let me know what you think of it down in the comments below, and if you've enjoyed using this. As always, if you guys did find this to be helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.